Hey, this is Sports Slaw with Lomas Brown, the pro.
And Deb Schneider, I'm the prof. And together, we're the pro and the prof.
Well, welcome to episode 59, and every single time we've giggled.
Yes. Yes, we have 59 times, huh?
Pretty much 59 times, yeah.
Yeah. So how are you, Deb? How you doing today?
Good. It's been a few minutes since we've gotten together, and a lot has happened.
Yes.
I mean, there is so much. So my goodness, you're busy. You're on the road all the time.
Yes.
with our Lions.
Yes. It hadn't been going well for these first 8 games. They're still trying to find a victory. And now we go to Pittsburgh this weekend for a game. It's going to be tough playing those guys. So it may be a couple of more weeks before we see a victory around here, Deb.
Well, are we going for the imperfect season, or do you think we're going to get a victory?
I think it might be 2 or 3 teams left that they may be able to get a victory against. But that list is getting shorter and shorter as the weeks go by. So they're going to have to hurry up and get one.
Oh, yeah. And here's a shout out to everybody. Get your Lions tickets so that you can come and see them in person.
Yes. Plenty of tickets. They have plenty of tickets, good tickets too. Even the traditional Thanksgiving Day game, there's tickets available for that. So yes, please come join us at Ford Field.
Yes. And the NFL, Roger Goodell has mentioned the Lions as a team, one of the 5 teams that needs to pick up on its attendance.
Yeah, and Deb, that's just so shocking. I've been here since 1985, and that's never been a problem. You think about it. The Lions went through an 0-16 season, and they still sold out Ford Field every game. And now in 2020, when we know the fans knew it was going to be a rebuild. We knew it was going to be a rebuild, so we knew it was going to be kind of tough. And even having the second youngest team in the NFL, we knew it was going to be kind of tough. But, man, it's just the fans. They're spending their hard-earned money. They want to see a good product on the field, and they haven't been able to see that lately. So I think the fans are speaking with their pocketbooks right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got there. I think the fans are really wondering what's going on with the NFL, and I think if we have to pick a theme for this particular episode 59, I think we should probably pick the theme of what's going on. What's going on with the NFL? We have so many scandals in sports right now. I always tell my students. I start off the class and say, I know something's going to happen. In any semester, something will happen. This semester, it's like every 15 minutes, something has happened. I'm used to one thing in a semester, not every 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, you're right. And Dale, to be honest with you, things kind of started, if you think back, things started even before the season started. They had a whole bunch of things going on. The biggest thing were the guys that get vaccinated.
Yep.
So that was a big thing coming into the season. How would the NFL handle that? You had a lot of things going on with some of the teams, the Washington Redskins, with all their practices, their business practices as far as how they were treating the women, how they were treating their employees over there, the environment that they had to work in. That was a big situation that came up. It's just been so many things that have come up throughout the NFL that's been keeping the NFL in the headlines. Be it good or bad, the NFL has been out there in the headlines ever since the off season. So it's just been continuing it throughout the season.
That's a really interesting point. My old boss used to say it doesn't matter if it's good press or bad press as long as they're talking about you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about vaccinations. I think that's one of the biggest scandals, one of the biggest things that's happening. Aaron Rodgers has said he was immunized, has had press conferences. I mean, I guess maybe we should back up. The NFL and the NFL Players Association agreed to COVID protocols.
Mm-hmm.
And as part of those COVID protocols, they said, if you're vaccinated, you do this, this, and this. If you're unvaccinated, there's social distancing, you have to be masked, et cetera, et cetera. Aaron Rodgers said he was immunized, never showed a vaccination card, never proved he was vaccinated. It was taken as he was vaccinated. And now it's come out he's got COVID and he's unvaccinated.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm kind of confused on how they thought, or how the team could have thought that him saying that he was immunized.
I think that was the term, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're exactly right. That was the term. But again, they make you show proof of vaccination. As you know, a lot of places are making you show proof of vaccination. And for Aaron Rodgers to say that he was immunized, I just think, and the biggest thing was him not following protocol. Like you said, the NFL protocol that each NFL player had to follow. And especially the unvaccinated players, what they had to follow. So just a quick example, we had our alumni weekend 2 weeks in the Philadelphia game, which was 2 weekends ago. So any unvaccinated alumni wasn't able to attend any of our events. Those guys were told that they can attend the events, whether they were masked or not masked. They weren't allowed to attend the events that we had on Friday and Saturday. Also, they were told that they wouldn't be allowed on Sunday to go into the suites where they had the other vaccinated alumni at. They would provide seats for them in the stadium, lower bowl seats for them, but they weren't allowed to go up there. But I think the thing that confused a lot of the players was, well, okay, you say I can't come in the suite if I'm unvaccinated, but you're going to put me down in the lower bowl around a lot of other people, whether you don't know, and you don't know whether they're vaccinated or unvaccinated, because again, you don't have to show that to come to any of the Lions football games. So, I think it caused a lot of confusion with our alumni. You had some alumni that were very taken back with that and upset about it, and really didn't understand, how the Lions came up with this criteria and how a lot of these NFL teams are coming up with the criteria of vaccinated versus unvaccinated players.
And that's interesting. From a legal perspective, a private workplace can say you have to be vaccinated. You have to wear safety shoes. It's a health and safety thing. It's a public health thing. And it's also health and safety for the organization. So any private employer can set their rules. Hospitals, when you come in, you expect your nursing staff and your doctors to have had a flu vaccine and not to be spreading this. So there's nothing wrong with saying we have to be vaccinated.
I agree.
The issue here seems to be one of, I'm not even sure what the issue is, like why this is so controversial.
I am too, Deb. I think, my opinion, I think why it became so controversial is because the government, everybody's looking at it as the government is telling you what you have to do And of course, people don't want to be told what they have to do with their own bodies. And I think that kind of feeds into a lot of the uncertainty, a lot of the distrust, a lot of the angst that goes with this. I think that feeds into a lot of them because if you think about it, Deb, they made this vaccine, so it was so political, especially
Right.
when our last president was in office. And of course, when we first started with that, they made it such a political thing, whether to get vaccinated or not get vaccinated. And now you have it a year later, they kind of still have a little bit of that debate, a little bit of that residue still left. And people are just upset about it. They really are. They don't want to tell you what to do. They don't want you to tell them what they have to do with their own body.
Right. And part of it is, I think maybe you're hitting the nail on the head here. Part of it is the government telling you what you are going to do, whereas maybe a private employer, because when we look, just take the microcosm of sports, most professional athletes are vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at 96% of the NBA. There are 4 NHL players who aren't vaccinated, 94% of the NFL. It just happens to be some of the big names who aren't vaccinated.
Yes.
And, and then what we're doing and how we're handling it, like you said, if you're unvaccinated, you can't come into the suite, but go ahead and either get sick or give the disease to the fans.
Right.
Did I hear that right?
You heard it right. And that's, you see that look on your face. That's how a lot of these ex-players would, all these alumni were looking like, what, that doesn't make any sense. And a lot of guys, for instance, I'll tell you, one of the guys is Eddie Murray, our famous kicker for the Lions. He has a heart condition. And that's the reason why he hadn't gotten vaccinated, or he won't get vaccinated. He says he wants to give it more time before he thinks about it because he has a serious heart condition. Well, he was the one that was one of the ones that was being told you can't have anything to do with the alumni. You can't come to the party. You can't come to the dinner. You can't go to any of the team functions that we have. But you can come to the game. Now, you can't sit in the suites, but we'll put you down, like you said, Dale. We'll put you down there amongst the fans, and it's like, good luck. Either they have it or you have it or whatever. But he was just so confused by how the Lions came up with that. And I don't know if it's just the Lions, or I don't know if it's an NFL thing, a league-wide thing with the NFL that set these protocols. But they do have a lot of these guys really confused by how they came up with these protocols.
Well, and the protocols, vary. I think they vary by team, they vary by state, they vary in cities. It's all over. I know Ray's got a clip of Aaron Rodgers talking about the fact that he was immunized. Let's look at that.
I do realize that I am a role model to a lot of people.
In his regular Tuesday appearance on the Pat McAfee show, Aaron Rodgers offered an apology of sorts.
I made some comments that people might have felt were misleading. And, to anybody who felt misled by those comments, I take full responsibility for those comments.
Rodgers is referring to what he said earlier this season.
Yeah, I've been immunized.
Rodgers didn't offer anything new in today's talk show appearance about the alternative medicines he's been using, including ivermectin. That's a medicine used to fight parasites in animals and in smaller doses, humans, but clinical trials haven't shown it's truly effective against COVID-19.
Have you jumped on a call with anybody to clarify anything at least, or try to explain yourself even more?
No, I stand by what I said. And the reasons why I made the decision.
Allergies, he had previously stated, to Pfizer and Moderna, concerns about complications from Johnson & Johnson, and fears that vaccines may impact fertility all went into his decision.
I'm an athlete. I'm not an activist. So I'm going to get back to doing what I do best. And that's playing ball.
During McAfee's show, Rodgers received praise and scorn over his decision to remain unvaccinated. That choice, and one to use alternative medicine, cost him a partnership with Prevea Health, where he was a spokesperson for a decade. So far in his recovery from COVID-19, Rodgers says he's been doing a bit of yoga and walking around. But if he hopes to play at home on Sunday against the Seattle Seahawks, the NFL first requires him to have a cardiac test as well as testing negative for COVID-19. Reporting in Milwaukee, Bruce Harrison, TMJ4 News.
Well, thank you, TMJ4 News, for letting us use that clip.
Yes.
And he's not, and now we have fines. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Did he lie?
Oh yeah. I mean, Aaron, you call it a white lie, you can call it whatever you want. You can call him not being truthful, however you want to state it. But I mean, to me, he lied. I mean, again, you were asked a direct question and he said he was immunized. And, again, I haven't heard that word until Aaron Rodgers brought that word up. Either when someone's asked whether they're vaccinated, it's either yes or no. It's not I'm immunized, So I think Aaron misled a lot of people. And I think the biggest thing was that, again, he broke the NFL protocol. I mean, he did his press conferences without a face mask on. He attended a party and I just told you that they said that, any NFL players that aren't vaccinated, they're not allowed to really.
You almost said immunized.
I know. They're not allowed to, attend team functions. And he did it anyway. Him and I can't think of the wide
Lazard.
receiver. Yes,
Yeah,
Lazard. So those guys were punished. The biggest thing was that I didn't think the punishment by the NFL fit the crime. I really didn't.
Well, it's interesting. I looked that up today.
Okay.
I looked up the NFL NFLPA protocols and what they decided, and it's a long document. But at the end of it, they say in the event that you've broken this, you can have fines up to $50,000, but attending a press conference without a mask or going to a party is a fine of, and this will shock you, $14,650.
Wow.
So they gave Rodgers the fine that was agreed upon. And I know, I guess I would argue that perhaps this was multiple times, so it should be more than one fine. But that was the amount that's in the document for a first offense for a number of things that Aaron Rodgers did.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because the fine for not having your jersey tucked in or, your uniform violations, they got one fine for not tucking in your jersey. That's like $15,000. So that's more of a fine. Not being dressed well for a game is more of a fine than, like you say, potentially getting people sick and potentially having teammates lose games, lose paychecks, because in the NFL, you only pay when you play the game. If you don't play in that game, you don't get paid. So, you have a team. One of the reasons why Aaron Rodgers came back and one of the reasons why the Packers wanted him back so bad is they have a team that's been to the NFC Championship game the last couple of years. They got a team ready to win the Super Bowl right now. So you're going to jeopardize losing some players, or possibly losing players to COVID because you got immunized or you're non-vaccinated and you don't want to follow protocol. I mean, to me, that's been kind of very selfish, especially when you talk about team sports. It's not when you're in a team sport, you just can't. Individual sport, yeah. Team sport, you got to think about the other 52, 53 guys. And I don't think Aaron did that when he did what he did.
which is really a fascinating piece of this. So the Packers have been fined $300,000, which is really not much.
Right.
14,650. I mean, that number was what was agreed to, and it's up to $50,000. And there are multiple instances of this. But where is the line drawn between entertainment and safety? And when I say entertainment, I'm talking about the marketing, the business, the money. Because quite frankly, who's going to come to the game or who's going to want to watch if Rodgers isn't playing?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm quite sure they thought about that too. I'm quite sure that was thought about with the NFL when they handed down this fine. They know the NFL is a quarterback-driven league. It is. I mean, it's a quarterback-driven league, so they want to have their quarterbacks on the field. That's why you see the penalties. If you touch a quarterback, if you sneeze on the quarterback, it's a 15-yard penalty. They protect those guys so much because they know they're the marketing behind the great game of football. And they know they need that product or they need that individual out on the field. And I do think that went into how much they were going to fine Aaron Rodgers. I know they had to talk about that, and I know internally the Packers have to be talking about that. They want, so yes, I mean, to me, again, it's like this big mixing bowl where you got the NFL, you got the teams, you got the players all in there, but you got these owners that are looking that they want to protect their product, and their product are the players that they put out on that field each and every Sunday.
Yep. Yeah, you got to playing the game is the product.
Yeah. But see that's great what Ray is saying there, where he's saying Lamar Jackson, quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens, is not vaccinated. I think the biggest difference to me about Lamar is that he said it. He's telling people he's not vaccinated. People know this. It's not like Aaron where you kind of had it where it was in the gray. Whether you didn't know that, and that's the difference, I think, between quarterbacks like Lamar, Josh Allen, Christian McCaffrey, the running back, DeAndre Hopkins. They're letting people know that they aren't vaccinated. And I think as a player, you can respect that more from your teammate. You're not going to try, as a teammate, I'm not going to try to force another guy to get vaccinated, especially if he don't believe in it, if that's something that he doesn't want to put in his body. But I do think it's important for you to be above the line and be straight up and let guys know the truth about that. Don't try to muddy the water like Aaron Rodgers did. Be truthful, be straightforward with it. And I think guys could respect you more than trying to muddy the water like he did, saying that he was immunized.
Yeah, and I will point out that the NFL and the NFLPA, the COVID protocol agreement that they put together did account for unvaccinated players. They said, if you're unvaccinated, this is what you need to do to protect the health and safety of everybody else. They didn't say you can't play. They said, this is what you have to do.
Yes.
So there's an out. I guess there's an out.
Yeah. No, you're right.
But it's interesting, some of the other things. When we talk about not being, I'll say, truthful, Evander Kane from the NHL.
Yeah, wow. He's a different dude. He that dude stays in trouble, man. It's either he's gambling, he's out fighting people. That dude right there, he stays in trouble. He's a guy. He's probably on the commissioner's radar at 24/7 because that guy keeps himself into some hot water. He really does.
He faked a vaccination card.
Wow.
He faked a vaccination card, which is illegal both in the United States and Canada and can result in up to 5 years of prison in the United States. And so he's been suspended for 21 games.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I point that out is because we just went through a number of unvaccinated NFL players and an Aaron Rodgers, who I'm a little controversial here. I'm going to ask you an awful question, but Aaron Rodgers, who stated that he was immunized. How do you think the NFL should handle this, given what we're seeing in the NHL? Now, obviously, Aaron Rodgers didn't fake a vaccination card. That was not part of it, but he wasn't, as you said, entirely truthful.
Right. And I again, Deb, I just think because he is a quarterback, if that would have been, I think, any other position, I think they probably would have been a little hard on him. Maybe not fine wise, but I think the team might have, been a little hard on them. I think the NFL might have looked at suspension. And the wild card to me in this whole thing is they still don't know. I mean, I'm talking about Green Bay. I mean, I guess by now they might know who or if he affected somebody or got somebody, got somebody sick from that. But I just think because he's Aaron Rodgers, MVP, the face of the Green Bay Packers, the face of the NFL, I think that's the reason why, again, that they were lenient with him. Because like you're saying, Evander got 21 games. I think they should have been a little harder on Aaron because they can use that as a deterrent. Another guy sees this and, oh man, they suspended Aaron Rodgers for a game, or they find him whatever a bigger amount, then you're gonna really have guys thinking about it. But they see this slap on the wrist. These guys may look at that as, hey man, well, if he could get away with this, then maybe I can. I just think it just sets a bad precedence when you do something like this.
Yeah, the inconsistency, I think, across sports, across states, it's just there's a lot of inconsistency in how we're handling COVID, and which shall we turn to some other inconsistent things with the NFL?
Sure. Yeah.
You mentioned at the beginning of the podcast Washington football team and Coach Gruden and workplace environment.
Yeah, I just think it's just, and this has been ongoing with the Washington Redskins. I mean, they've been talking about this for a couple of years now with their workplace environment, how women were treated, how the cheerleaders were treated, So it's just they just set a bad environment there in Washington at the Washington football team. And the thing that's, I think, most upsetting for a lot of people is that the owner, Daniel Snyder, you expect the owner to step in and be more proactive about things. But the only reason, and he has been lately, but I think it was forced. I think once they found out what was going on and things leaked outside the walls in Washington about the environment, and you had some of the former workers coming back and suing them and, telling them just how it was to work there, to be in that environment. I think that and the public pressure, I think that's what's forcing Daniel Snyder to do some of the things he's doing. And I'm happy because he's promoted women now. They got a lot more women in higher positions in Washington. They got a lot more people of color that they're promoted in higher positions of power. And a lot of this has happened because of what's been coming out about the Washington football team and the owner, Daniel Snyder. So, yeah, I hate that it had to be forced. He had to be forced to do some of the things that he did, but I'm glad about the results of him being forced to do some of the things that he had to do.
Yeah. It's such a bad situation all around here. we know that, there are a lot of emails that were out there, over 650,000 emails. There are a number of the women who are coming forth and saying this was a really bad environment for, quite frankly, a really long time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't unknown. It was just unknown to the public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People would start working there, and they knew what was going on there. And the fact that we really have only released such a small portion of these emails, and there's no written report. I think there's a lot more out there.
Well, that's what I think. And I think that's the thing that, Coach Gruden is saying too, that they only took a small portion, or kind of took out his portion of those emails, where he knows it was so much more. I'll just put it out there. Me and Coach Gruden texted each other probably about 2 weeks ago. And in his reply text to me, he was saying that, basically telling me that they were out to get him, that people were mean, and that, and it was more like a witch hunt. And that's how he felt. And like you say, when you got 650,000 emails out of there, and the only one person out of those 650,000 you were able to extract out there and say that this person is, a racist, or, misogynistic, or whatever, it's not right, because we know that it was other people on that email link. We know that Bruce Allen was on there. We know that the former owner of the Hooters, he was another guy that was privy to that. And I'm quite sure Coach Gruden knows a lot more than he's saying right now. So my thing, Deb, I'm wondering and putting to you is, do you think it might be some type of settlement, some type of settlement that is taking place, that may take place with the NFL and Coach Gruden? Do you think that this suit is going to see the light of day, or do you think the NFL is going to come to him and try to settle this, kind of like what they did with Colin Kaepernick? And, do you think that's going to happen?
Well, I think that what's happened here, to set the stage a little bit for the background of that, background to the answer to that question, is Coach Gruden, he just settled with the Raiders, and there was, he settled the contract with the Raiders. He was forced to resign, settled the contract with the Raiders. 2 days later, sues the NFL. And that's the lawsuit that you're referencing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it has to do with the inconsistency. Remember when we had the Deflategate, there were reams and reams of reports on what happened, and did Tom Brady know about the deflated balls, and who knew, and what happened when, and all kinds of things. And here we have 650,000 emails, of which less than 1% have actually been publicized. And Coach Gruden is the one who was, as he's saying, they were the only ones made public. Where are the reports? Where is everything?
Well, I don't look for the NFL to release it unless they have to release it. I really don't.
I agree. I think the NFL is on its heels with a couple of things. This is one of them. It's better to settle than have things put out there. We also have the St. Louis and the relocation lawsuit, which, I'm smelling settlement before I'm smelling full discovery and trials.
Yeah, I with you on that, because I mean, again, it's a black eye for the NFL, and I just think Coach Gruden is a smoking gun. I just think he has so much more information, or he has stuff on other people that could implement other guys into this. Because like you're saying, 650,000 emails. I mean, that's a lot of emails. So I just think, and it's funny too, Deb, the correspondence that Coach Gruden had was with Bruce Allen, And Bruce Allen used to be the president or ran the Washington football team, under which a lot of that workplace environment stuff, or the work, took place while under Bruce Allen's watch. And now you got Coach Gruden and him communicating back and forth in emails. So that's no coincidence to me.
No,
I mean, it's just plain and simple. So you just see the environment, and Deb, I wonder how much does ESPN play into this too? Because don't forget, Coach Gruden was with ESPN when he was doing all this.
Yes, a lot of this happened not when he was coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm noticing that our intern Hunter also has some comments on this.
Hey, what's up? So I just wanted
behind the scenes.
Hey,
what's up?
I just wanted to I wanted to add some stuff about John Gruden's lawsuit. I'm really curious to see how that goes, because the league's been facing calls from Congress for a little bit, and the House Oversight Committee has basically demanded that they have to produce these documents, and that Roger Goodell has said he's going to comply and he's going to work with them, which would be pretty crazy, because as we were talking about, if any of these other emails got leaked, like the reputation behind Dan Snyder is well known. I'm sure if even a small percentage of these emails came out, it would wreak havoc. And then, like you were saying before, Deb, with the lawsuit involving the Rams, I read a report recently from from an article from the Ringer about how the other owners are really upset with him for the way he's handled everything, and that apparently he has been trying to throw some of the other owners under the bus with this.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can see that. I'm telling you, I think Coach Gruden is the key. I think he's a key to a lot of things that could bring a lot of people down. And again, I kind of got that, Hunter, from him when we were texting. Like he said, he said witch hunt. That's what he thought this was. So I just think there's a lot more information, like you guys are saying, that's out there that they want to see. Congress want to see some of this. And anytime you get Congress involved into sports, we talked about that. Remember, Dale, we were talking about that before, how Congress, more and more, they seem to be coming into professional sports, or really having a big influence, into not even professional sports. I'll say sports, period. They're starting to really stick their toe into it. Mark Emmert, remember with the NCAA, when they were talking about his name, likeness, and image. He wanted the government to step in and kind of, stop it. So you could just kind of see the involvement of the government becoming more and more prevalent in our sports.
Well, it's interesting. Back in 1961, there's something called the Sports Broadcasting Act. So 1961, most people didn't have a television. Okay, so think about this. Most families didn't have a television. If they had one, it was black and white. We might have had 3 channels. And you had your little brother holding up the rabbit ears in order to, you remember that, Lomas, holding up the rabbit ears and saying, move left, move right. This is where it has to be. But in the Sports Broadcasting Act, they exempted football, baseball, basketball, and hockey from antitrust for basically pooling their sports broadcasts. The NCAA decided not to join, by the way, and then the NCAA ended up getting sued in 1984 and lost, but that's a whole other story. So we have that kind of thing happening. We have the Curt Flood Act, which didn't happen, until Clinton was in office, 1998. I mean, so Congress and sports is interesting. We have name, image, likeness. We have 6 or 7 different bills pending right now that aren't moving forward. Probably because Congress is a little busy, and that may be what's happening right now. Hunter, to your point, even if Congress is looking at it, do they have the time right now? They seem to be otherwise preoccupied.
Yeah, and I know Goodell, I mean, he might say he's going to cooperate, but there's definitely some things he can do to avoid and push this further down the timeline and try and just basically play keep away.
Yeah. So, Deb, legal question: does he have to comply, Roger Goodell? Does he have to produce this? Does he have to do what he says he's going to do, or is that just an option for him or a choice?
Oh my gosh! Ask Steve Bannon. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
He refused to comply and was just indicted today by the Department of Justice.
Yeah.
Yes, if there's a subpoena, yes, he's going to have to comply. I think he's playing an interesting game because he has to say he's going to comply.
Okay.
And the appearance has to be, I'm going to comply. But if we can settle it, or maybe we can make this thing go away, maybe we can save the reputation. And what's Congress looking for? That's the other thing. What are we trying to find here? I mean, I talked about the Sports Broadcasting Act. You talk about name, image, likeness. At what point should Congress be stepping in? Mm-hmm. And, sports and politics are intertwined. I mean, there's no question about it. Look at sports gambling. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's going to be, Congress has to get to it. I guess that's the biggest thing. Congress has to get to it. And in the meantime, maybe we can sweep some things under the rug. Or maybe we're all wrong and there are 650,000 just regular emails.
I would guess we're not wrong.
Right. Especially when you got the what is it? The New York, what's the investigative reporters? We got one from New York. They got investigative reporters all over this. And when they get something, they don't let it go. I mean, we could ask our ex-mayor, Kwame Kilpatrick, when he had the investigative reporter on him. I mean, he couldn't step out of his office without that guy having the microphone in his face asking him what's going on. And I can kind of see the same thing, going on with the NFL. Until they get answers, they're gonna hound this. They're gonna stay after this, and stay after this. So I hope the NFL don't think this is gonna go anywhere because they got because they got rid of Coach Gruden. They think that the problem is gone. It's a long ways from that.
I agree, and I think Roger Goodell, he's definitely walking a tightrope, but he has been for a long time with a lot of scandals for years and years, and quite frankly, he's very, very good at it.
Yeah, but Deb and Hunter, I kind of feel sorry for him, and just in this way, because those 32 owners are paying his salary. They're pulling the strings. The owners are. Yes, Roger Goodell is the face of the NFL or the face of the owners. He's basically, other than Jerry Jones and a couple of other owners that Roger Goodell is the face of the owner. He speaks for these owners, and he's going to have to speak favorably when he's representing them. So I kind of feel sorry for him because he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I guess that comes with the job of being commissioner, of the NFL and making the type of money that you make. But, I think it's a lot of things that I think he feels that's not right with how some of the things that have been handled in the NFL. You go back to the protests with Colin Kaepernick.
Yep.
I don't think that was Roger Goodell speaking. I think that was the owners speaking through Roger Goodell. I think for him, he would have been more favorable towards Colin Kaepernick, or at least sitting down and trying to listen to what Colin had to say. But I just think he had those owners telling him, no, we don't want protests. He can't do this. He can't do that. And of course, like I say, he's been paid by these NFL owners.
Right. He's constantly walking a tightrope between public opinion, between the entertainment and the business of the NFL, and the fact that he, like you said, he answers to the owners. They are his bosses. And, I do feel I feel he's got quite a difficult job.
Yeah.
And
You're right.
I do have to say, I think whether you like him or dislike him or his decisions, he's walked that tightrope for a while and he's done it well.
Yes, I
Because,
agree.
How many people can weather the scandals that we can name? I mean, you can put up 10 fingers and you can say, okay, he's dealt with this, and this, and he's weathered them all.
Yeah, I agree.
Wow, I think we might have just had the most favorable Roger Goodell content out there of any podcast.
You're right, Hunter, because everywhere he goes, they boo him. The only booing I heard a little louder than him was when they booed Shillaham Ford at Ford Field.
Oh my God!
Was that terrible? Wasn't that
insane.
terrible?
Yeah,
it was terrible. It was, Hunter. I couldn't even hear what she was saying over the loudspeakers at the stadium. It was that bad.
It was ridiculous. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen, like just in a stadium, honestly.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, Roger, we're looking out for you. I'm trying to look out for you over here. We got you back here on Sports Slaw.
I just think that what he's saying, he has to walk the tightrope. He has to answer to so many people. It's as bad as being a school superintendent these days. But so I think we're running out of time here. Any final thoughts on our NFL edition?
Well, I mean, for me, it's almost like what's next. To be honest with you, Deb, it's almost like what's going to happen next. I mean, again, you got the Coach Gruden situation, you got the everlasting, ever changing COVID situation that people are going through, and sports teams are going through. So to me, it's like what's next, and how will the NFL handle this? It's also, to me, now that this has come out about the Washington football team, what other teams are practicing have a bad work atmosphere? What other teams are going to come out of this? What other exec are they going to find that hadn't been on the up and up or has created this toxic atmosphere, work atmosphere for a lot of players, for a lot of workers on NFL teams. So for me, I'm in this mode of wait and see. I'm just waiting to see what shoe falls next.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I'm curious about how the NBA has two of their big investigations going on with the Suns and the Trailblazers, and the Trailblazers one isn't even out yet, and the team president just resigned. So I'm curious to see how that happens in the different sports and how these things end up concluding and what happens.
Yeah, and I am going to say that it kind of goes to something that you said earlier, Lomas. This is awful that this has happened. This is terrible that it's coming out. But maybe the results will. I think we're going to change. We're going to see some huge changes very, very rapidly. And I'm going to say those changes to a large extent are going to be for the better. So I'm going to take the, silver lining part of this.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. That's good. Yeah. I think
so
they wish they had one.
Silver lining, and I'm defending Roger Goodell.
We like it.
Very
we love it. Yeah.
Okay, so we're streaming right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and we're going to be on SoundCloud, Spotify, and sportslaw.com. So check us out. And thank you. Good conversation.
Great as always.